pleased to have back here after his second draft as a head coach in the National Football League. Carolina's Matt Rhule. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. What was it like in your draft room? The number of times I'm sitting there on the set and I'm hearing the Panthers are trading down, I lost track and then you moved up. I mean, you were all over the board. What was it like that night in the weekend?
I think there were a lot of nervous coaches and scouts as they sat there and they watched other people draft them. But I think at the end of the day it worked out. It was nerve-wracking at the time, to be quite honest. Because you're taking some gambles, but at the end of the day, the risk wasn't outweighed by the reward.
So let's jump right into it, if you don't mind. You had the choice of every defensive player on the board. I mean, that's incredible. That had never happened in the history of the draft. That somebody 8th overall could be sitting there having every defensive player at their ready, because the draft had never started with 7 offensive players in a row. Were you close to making it 8 offensive players?
We had thought about it. I mean, we liked a lot of the guys that obviously the guys that went before us and the guys that were there. But we looked at Jaycee Horn as like being the perfect player for us. A great player, son of an NFL player, so he's grown up in it. Loved the way that he plays, and then obviously fills a need for us. And so I think anytime you can get a guy that you feel really good about, not just what they do on tape, but also who they are and their mental makeup. It was a pretty easy pick for us.
Well, I mean, you had, like I said, every defensive player available to you, and there was Patrick Surtain as well. I know you just kind of mentioned that you liked the fact that his dad played in the league and he maybe grew up around the sport. Why else Jaycee Horn over Patrick Surtain from Alabama?
I don't think anything negative to either player. I just think as we spent time with JC on Zoom, I went to the pro day. As I just kind of watched him walk around and interact with people, you can just feel his competitiveness, and so that's something that I love. And there were lots of other guys that we knew, like, hey, these guys would help us and they'd come in and play for us. But JC, there was just a certain edge, a certain vibe to the way that he plays that just kind of jumped off the tape. And I think it wasn't just me. I mean, I think our secondary coach, our coordinator, our GM, I think everyone felt that, and he is the way that we want to play.
And was it any point of view, because again, I'm sure you're very happy to get him and excited to get him, any point at all you're like, am I ever going to choose an offensive player in the draft? Because I mean, your entire first draft was defensive players, Coach.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, right? I looked over at the offensive staff, and you could see them. And then I think Mr. Tepper, our owner, he was kind of saying, "Are we ever going to do someone on offense?" in a kind of in a joking way, but. Again, we love the kid, and then they got back in the second round, and we were able to get a wide receiver, and then a couple offensive players after that. So, but yeah, there were definitely some guys on offense that were like, why do we even write these reports if you're not going to?
Nice. I mean, wide out, tackle, tight end from Notre Dame, and Tommy Tremble, and then Chuba Hubbard, who had a terrific career at Oklahoma State. All 4 offensive players after all of that, but. In terms of an offensive player, Coach, I think I'm not telling any tales out of school that the NFL media writ large, the number of people that I spoke to prior to the draft that was saying Carolina absolutely would take a quarterback if the quarterback was available, despite having acquired Sam Darnold, who I'll get to with you in a second. You had Justin Fields and also Mac Jones on the board. Were they not ranked high enough? Walk me through why you didn't actually go in that direction.
No, I love those guys, and I think that they're going to be great NFL players. I just think for us, when we got Sam, and again, no one, he's 23 years old, just turned 24. We just felt like Sam plus another player, would be better for the team overall. Bill Parcells once said, one player can't do it alone, and so we're just trying to build the whole team. And I just believe in Sam. I believe that he deserves the opportunity to go out and play with us. And I think those other young quarterbacks are going to be fantastic players. But the hit rate on first round quarterbacks isn't real high. And to have a chance to get Jaycee Horn and have Sam Darnold, we just kind of felt like, hey, this is 2 for 1. Now we just have to make sure Sam's a great player for us.
Well, I mean, Coach Matt Rhule of Carolina Panthers here on the Rich Eisen Show. I think I've said this to you before, and if not, you may already know it. As a Jet fan, who was, at the time also hoping maybe you would get hired there a couple of years ago, hearing the words "deserve the opportunity" and associated with Sam Darnold, like, huzzah for that. Like, yes, he deserves it. He deserves the opportunity. And the conversation about him not being properly evaluated because of the circumstances surrounding him in New York for the first 3 years, I lost track of the number of times I hear that. How did you evaluate him? How are you able to evaluate him by saying, let's go get him as an organization? How are you able to do that?
Yeah, this all happened kind of in a weird way. We were sitting there one day on defense, and I can't remember what we were watching. We were watching a cut up, and Sam was playing on the other side of the ball, and a couple times he made some throws. And Phil Snow, our defensive coordinator, was like, "Man, that kid looks like Matt Stafford." And so we put a couple games on him. This is the defensive staff. Mm-hmm. And they were all like, you know what? Every game we watch, he makes a couple of big-time plays, and there has to be some meat on the bone there. And so I kind of went through the process and kept watching him and going back and watching him in college and watching his pro day, and then going back and watching his first year in a different offense and the second year and his third year. And, when the compensation was enough where, we didn't have to give up what we thought was too much, that would hurt our team, and a chance to get him here, we had watched so much tape on him that we saw enough shining moments. And then what's been really good for us is after getting him here, talking to Robbie Anderson who played with him, talking to other guys who played with him, there's not many guys who've been his teammates who say anything bad about him. Like, they all have believed in him and believe that he can be good. And hearing some of his former coaches talk about him, they believe that he can be good. And so I've always been kind of a nurture versus nature guy. I think people have to be in the right situations, and hopefully a change of scenery is what he needs, and hopefully, he comes here and plays with Robbie again and DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey and can just go out there and be one of the guys and play well. And
he's insanely positive too, Matt. I mean, the number of times that I would run into him at events or at the Super Bowl after the Jets had a disappointing season, and he would say, "We've got this. We're going to get this right." I kind of would look at him as, then you've spent time in New York, so you just say, "Really?" And you kind of look at him in the face and say, does he really believe it? And he does. Like, he's an insanely positive person on top of it. How much from your experience while you were maybe kicking the tires in the Jets and vice versa a couple of years ago when you went back to Baylor, did you utilize any of that conversations that Sam, I imagine you were connected with him in that process, that you were able to lean on that as you acquired him this time around?
Yeah, when the Jets, the folks, first class folks, when they came to Waco to interview me, one of the first things they did was pull out an iPad and had me, FaceTime or Skype or whatever it was with
right.
Sam. And this is after his first year, and he had a pretty good first year, and we're talking. And the thing that always hit me was, he didn't want to know who the offensive coordinator was. He didn't want to know what kind of offense we were going to run. He didn't care who the quarterback coach was. He was asking me about the culture of the team, about the way things would be run. He was interested in, in discipline and accountability. And to me, when your best players, when your starting quarterback, when when your tailback, when your starting linebacker, when your best players are yearning and believe in discipline, accountability, process, all those different things, you have a chance. And that always stayed with me. And, that one didn't work out. But, coming into this, I knew, without having a chance to talk to him, I knew that he believes in the same things that I believe in, that it's not just talent. It's talent that is all pulling in the same direction. And so that interaction with him made me feel better when we made the trade.
Matt Rhule, Carolina Panthers head coach here on the Rich Eisen Show. How's McCaffrey doing? I mean, I do see him on Instagram every now and then, living La Vida Loca. But is he back to 100%, ready to roll whole bit for this season?
Yeah, I think Christian's he's at 100%, and I think he's going to have a fantastic year. I see him sometimes walking in and out of the building. He's I think last year was just the toll of a couple of seasons in college and in the pros. He's done a lot. I think, it all just kind of caught up with him for a bit, and I expect him to come out this year and hit the ground running. And I know he's excited. I know he's mentally in a really good place and physically in a really good place as well.
Well, and I know it's kind of a very touchy subject, certainly with him, because that was the conversation coming out of college, is that he was a fine piece of Stanford china, that few people saw play because he was dominating at 12 Eastern time at midnight, and that he wouldn't be able to run between the tackles. And man, did he carry a large load. Are you planning on still having that large load placed upon him in 2021?
Yeah, I think we want to do that within reason. We want to give him every chance to affect the game, but at the same time, we also want to make sure that we keep him healthy for 17 games, and we want to be a team that goes to the playoffs. So we also want to have him hitting his stride late in the year. So drafting Chuba was a big part of that. And making sure that we had a guy that we could spell him with some of the other guys that we have here already. So we'll use him, but we'll just try to make sure that we're really smart about the toll that he takes.
And then about the future here, Coach. I mean, you got, as you point out, a 23-year-old quarterback. We all know Brady is sometime going to have to retire, right? Matt Ryan, the Falcons just decided to draft in a manner that sticks with him as he's approaching 40, and we all know that the Saints have just lost their GOAT quarterback. Do you feel like you're positioned to be the team of the future in this division, Matt Rhule?
It's hard to say. I mean, but we've taken an approach. When I got here, there was a lot of guys that were kind of ready to move on, and so over the course of 2 years, we've really turned a lot of the roster over. And I think our average age on this team is like 24 years, 24.2. We're the youngest team in the NFL, and so. There's a nice cohort of guys, McCaffrey and DJ Moore and Sam Darnold and guys on defense, Jeremy Chindick. They're all kind of growing up in this program together. So we want to be a team that, with these draft picks we just drafted, that can be really good for a while. And the other teams in the NFC South are outstanding teams. We're just a young team that's hopefully really hungry and ready to make some noise.
I know I always sometimes, Coach, when I'm asked like, what's it like to work for the commissioner, Roger Goodell? What's it like to work for your boss? It's you're always wonder if the answer is straightforward. People wonder like, am I really telling the truth? Who's going to tell the truth about their boss, so on and so forth. But what is it like coaching for a hedge fund manager? What's it like?
Oh, I mean, it's unbelievable. I love working for David Tepper. Like, the questions he asks, he leaves the football to me and Scott, but he asks unbelievable questions because he sees the world in such a special way. And so,
like what? You got a good example of what do you got for me?
I can't even think of something off the top of my head. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just think he's always saying why, or have you thought of this, and anything from just the way that we travel to everything. I mean, he's just got such a unique eye and a unique way of seeing things. And to me, that's so valuable. Like, I think when you put a staff together, like if everyone thinks the same, then really no one's thinking. And so to have someone on the outside that is constantly asking questions and good questions and coming up with ideas, I think it's really important. And at the same time, he's a tremendous person. I mean, this is a guy that talks to my son, before the Baylor game, and wants to, this is a guy that knows my kids' names. This is a guy that calls players on the team when things happen. This is a guy that my assistant just had a baby yesterday, and Mr. Tepper's one of the first people to reach out to him. I mean, he cares a lot about the people in the organization. So I'm really blessed and certainly have a great owner.
I love what you just said because it kind of sums up a lot here. When everybody's thinking the same, no one's really thinking. What did you mean by that? I think I know what you mean by that, but what does that mean?
Well, I just think that you can have a lot of groupthink, especially in the NFL, where everyone's kind of afraid every year. Hey, am I going to lose my job?
Right.
What do I got to do to keep my job? Hey, just keep things simple. Like, Bill Parcells, used to believe, would talk about how conflict is needed, and really at the end of the day, like I want to be a part of a staff where we're not afraid to go in a room and argue, and sometimes loudly, with different ideas and different opinions. And we never say to ourselves, well, that's the way we've always done it. We're always trying to do something better and new and unique. I think when you have that, A, everyone feels like they have a voice, but B, you have a chance to be innovative. You have a chance to be on the cutting edge because you're not just doing what everyone else does. And so we want people who speak their mind. And I think what's really cool about the Carolina Panthers is there's no, we don't compartmentalize that. I expect Scott Fitterer to walk into me and say, hey, why are we playing so-and-so there? And just like I want him to hear my opinion about personnel. And we don't want to say, hey, everyone just stick to your area. We want to be a place where we talk and communicate and argue. And at the end of the day, when we make a decision, man, we're rocking with it.
So if you don't mind conflict, it's okay if Jaycee Horn brings a cell phone on the field? We're good with that then? Is that good?
I got to tell you now, this is true. When I went to the pro day, I was pulling up the park, and I saw Joe Horn walking in the parking lot, and I kind of turned into like 17, 16-year-old Matt Rhule. I stopped the car in the middle of the parking lot and got out and just said, Mr. Horn, my name's Matt Rhule. I'm the head coach of the Panthers. It's really just kind of such an honor to meet you, and because he's someone I looked up to and respected and as a player, and now he's just a dad, which is awesome. But I definitely fanned out for a minute.
Yeah. Plus, there's no flip phones anymore, too, right? It's all smartphones now. Hey, before I let you go, did you reach out to Scott Drew? You know what it's like building a championship team in Baylor or attempting to win a national championship in Baylor, and I'm sure you must have had a lot of interaction with him on the campus after they won. Yeah,
I mean, I love Scott Drew. I obviously I texted him after the win, but I thought the game before the final game, they were shooting really poorly and from three, and he made a halftime adjustment, man, and they started taking the ball to the rim in the second half and found a way to win and go to the championship game. And I texted him after that game. I said, I don't know anything about basketball, coach, but that's one of the best coach games I've ever seen. And he when I was at Baylor, he was crucial to our success.
How so?
Because he would always reach out. He knew people in town. He would always be positive. We went through a lot of really hard stuff at Baylor early on, and it took a tremendous toll, I think, on all of us on the staff as people. And he was someone that always had our back and always was positive with us, as was Kim Mulkey, another national championship coach. So I was really happy for Scott, and I'm excited for Coach Mulkey now as she heads to LSU.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, if anybody knows about tough beginnings at Baylor, it certainly would be Scott Drew.
Yeah,
I mean, my gosh, and taking over. So, he came on the show, and boy, did that team just spanked everybody in the tournament. And I just figured I'd ask you what you thought about it. So, he's a good dude. Thanks for the call, Coach. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy our chats. Look forward to doing it maybe during the summer before the season. We'll chat. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You got it. That's Matt Rhule, everybody. Carolina Panthers head coach. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.